On a calm October morning, shortly after midnight, the US government entered shutdown mode. The failure to pass a budget, which is what governments are supposed to do, was the only notable event. There was no executive order or major announcement. That failure now threatens every aspect of American life because of partisan deadlock. A procedural mistake escalates into a crisis that impacts international recognition, public services, and confidence. The United States' fiscal year begins on October 1st and ends on September 30th. To fund all federal programs and agencies, Congress must pass 12 separate appropriations bills each year. When that doesn't work, lawmakers resort to short-term solutions called continuing resolutions. But in 2025, those stopgaps proved ineffective. As September 30th approached, there was still no agreement. At 12:01 a.m. on October 1st, the majority of federal operations were completely halted. In short, the White House and Congress could not agree on healthcare subsidies, Medicaid cuts, or how to allocate federal spending. The American people are now bearing the expense. Government activities don't always stop. Examples of mandatory programs that continue to receive payments include Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Furthermore, the U.S. Postal Service is still in operation, using its own money rather than congressional appropriations. Because they are deemed essential, law enforcement, air traffic control, immigration enforcement, and military personnel must continue to work, often without compensation, until the shutdown is over. Numerous other programs have also been reduced or discontinued, including federal research grants, administrative services, national parks, museums, environmental inspections, food safety supervision, and more. The shutdown shatters the illusion of seamless governance. For many Americans, the damage is immediate. The federal government has put about 800,000 employees on furlough, which means they won't be expected to report to work for some time. Although their pay has been suspended, many more people are still working. Those who are currently having difficulty making ends meet or paying their rent will not benefit, even if past pay is eventually reinstated. Payroll ripples, small businesses near federal facilities losing customers, and fragile supply lines breaking down are all negative effects on local economies that rely on federal employees. Nutrition and social programs quickly feel the strain. The WIC program, which provides low-income mothers and children with wholesome food, may run out of money in a few weeks in a number of states. Families who depend on that support are suddenly at a disadvantage because, in some places, they are not eligible for milk, formula, or childcare subsidies. There is a chance that other programs, like housing aid, student scholarships, and veteran services, will be postponed or discontinued. As agencies in charge of monitoring, inspection, and enforcement are compelled to furlough staff, food safety inspections stop, regulatory reviews slow, and administrative backlogs increase. More harm is done to the economy than to people. The shutdown costs the U.S. economy billions of dollars every week, according to analysts. Among the irrecoverable losses are delayed projects, missed investments, and breached contracts. Missing data increases the risk. Data on inflation, consumer spending, and the renowned employment report may all be delayed or not released at all. In a country where businesses, central banks, and markets rely on current economic data, operating blind is a real worry. At the moment, the Federal Reserve uses inadequate data to inform its interest rate decisions. Decision-making at private businesses is more uncertain. Slow growth, cautious investment, and unstable markets were the results. State and local governments are also struggling. Many people must decide whether to continue funding federal services that face failure. Some will make an effort, but many will simply not have the funds. In states with little funding, social services are reduced, infrastructure projects are halted, and already troubled areas may get worse. National parks and museums, which serve as public representations of government culture, may shut down entirely when contingency funding runs out. Following a few buffer days, Washington's visitor trails turn black, and the Smithsonian closes. The courts are impacted as well. While the Supreme Court is still in operation, many lower federal courts must reduce their operations. Immigration cases, civil lawsuits, and administrative appeals all proceed slowly. Backlogs are made. There is no customer service. The court system is leaking oil. As passport and visa processing, the first step to international travel and exchange, slows down or stops completely. It disrupts tourism, business travel, and diplomacy. Political scheming has already begun. Both parties share accountability. Democrats are allegedly unwilling to compromise on Medicaid cuts and Affordable Care Act subsidies, according to Republicans. Democrats react that Republicans are enforcing their ideological agenda by holding the government hostage. Public opinion fluctuates. According to some polls, voters are more likely to blame Republicans, especially in swing districts. However, the blame is ambiguous because many Americans believe that dysfunction is systemic rather than party-related. This shutdown is unusual, in part, because the White House has alluded to the potential for permanent cuts. This is not just a temporary service suspension, as there is a chance of more substantial structural changes in the future. When presidential orders and rescissions already target public media, foreign aid, and agency budgets, the shutdown becomes a lever rather than a crisis. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which finances NPR and PBS, is already experiencing budget cuts as a result of a Rescissions Act that was passed earlier this year. That measure, which caused several public media outlets to scramble, took more than $1.1 billion out of CPB's budget. In this context, agency funding suspensions become ideological collateral. In addition to showing a moment of failure, the shutdown paints a picture of the future. On a global level, it makes a powerful statement. One important force that is thought to be unable to finance itself is the United States. Allies may be reluctant when US commitments falter. Adversaries may perceive weakness. The world's markets, which are already volatile because of inflation, debt loads, and geopolitical risk, may change. The credibility of the United States' leadership in diplomacy, climate change, and foreign aid declines. These are not remote effects because they have an impact on fragile alliances, treaties, and international governance. But this immobility can be overcome. A short-term continuing measure, or an omnibus funding measure, Congress may negotiate a resolution as a stopgap measure to reopen the government. As a result, many furloughed employees return, many delayed programs are restarted, and the majority of back pay is recovered. But the effects are still there. Trust is harmed, projects are delayed, and momentum is lost. Overburdened communities may not recover, unspent funds disappear. Small-scale services may never fully recover. Furthermore, the public still accepts the incompetence narrative. Will there ever be an end to this cycle? The more general question is that. Will Congress amend the rules to prevent shutdowns? Or will the political practice of brinkmanship make disaster the default? As long as government funding is reliant on annual disputes and bargaining power, shutdowns will always be a possibility. In one way or another, this shutdown is more than just a spending slip. It's a test of resilience, of public institutions, political will, and the trust between the people and the government. When a system intended to provide both stability and chaos fails at the same time, the issue becomes structural rather than transient. Because interrupted services come at a human cost. The unpaid soldier, the mother who is refused food assistance, the scientist whose lab is closed, and the student who is delayed because of a backlog of visas are not mere abstracts. These are lives that have been upended. These futures have been postponed. These communities are under stress. The world thus witnesses a paralyzed superpower. The messages that emerge from the internal fissures spread around the globe. Decisions made in smoke-filled rooms in Washington now affect borders, economics, and relationships. The government's machinery is meant to operate in the background in the modern era, overseeing security, welfare, health, and education. When that machinery stops, the emptiness echoes. A broken machine reveals the component's strength or weakness. The parts of America are under stress right now. This moment does not have to happen. Leaders who are unwilling to compromise and politics that prioritize power over governance are the ones who make the decision. Budgeting, compromise, and negotiation were all doable, but the system has continuously failed. What is lost during this shutdown might be more significant than the number of days. Trust is eroded, contracts are terminated, and trust departs. The real cost may become evident years later. Public institutions are weakened, social safety nets are undermined, and norms are upset. And until the government reopens, whenever that day comes, it won't be clear if the lights are back on. The question will be whether those flickering lights can shine as brightly again, whether or not people think that fundamental governance duties could eventually be finished without shutdown brinkmanship, whether the United States can still govern itself in the face of its global issues. If you found this information helpful and want to stay informed about future updates, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. By clicking the bell icon, you'll receive notifications whenever we post new content, ensuring you never miss an important story or analysis. Your support helps us continue bringing you in-depth coverage of major events shaping our world. Thank you for watching and being a part of our community.